Hello, hello.
Good noontime to you, kind sir.
Good noontime to you too. How's it going
Thank
out there?
Yes, yes. And we've been talking for 15 minutes, so I know how you're doing.
Yes. So what's new this week though?
In terms of our topic for today.
Oh, everything.
Oh, well, um, we've got something that we're looking into, Mary and I,
Oh.
and Stargell, the cat, but I don't want to move the computer to see him because I might short us out or something. But um, there's a thing called, and we're looking into it. We haven't committed to it yet, and they haven't committed to us. But it's
Okay.
called medical foster home or
Okay.
medical foster something,
Yeah, how's that?
where we would take a veteran from the VA and have them live in our house.
Yeah.
That we would be like their
Hmm.
foster home.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard of that. I don't know a lot about the program. I mean, I've only heard about it in terms of, news alert bulletins that, we get periodically from our network director or national VA. But um, yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, Mary's and my father both were veterans, but her father was shot.
Mm.
May he may he rest in peace. Went by the name of Mac. His name was Roy McLaughlin, and everybody called him Mac. He was fighting in the Pacific Theater in Japan
Oh,
um, in World War II, and he was shot in the leg. And he spent the night in like 12 hours in a foxhole, bleeding out,
wow.
not knowing who was going to come to him first, the Japanese or the Americans.
Yeah.
And the Americans did. He convalesced in Hawaii and was had a stiff leg the rest of his life
Oh, yeah, I bet.
and died kind of young.
Okay.
You I think I know it was 1972.
Hmm.
So he was wounded in like 44.
Okay.
Um, and so she has a soft spot in her heart for veterans.
Yeah.
And during my hospice work, I was always down uh, at the VA center. There's one called a town called Union Grove. I was down there all the time, and couldn't have been more charmed by 99% of them.
Yeah.
You know, um, loved them, loved them,
Hmm.
loved the maturity that they that was their perspective.
Yeah.
Um, so we're looking into it.
That's cool.
Be of
Yeah.
use that way.
That's really cool. So, from what I understand and know of it, and you probably have more research from the participant side of it. Um, so, generally, these are veterans who have experienced some sort of potentially acute change in medical status, have been stabilized, or maybe gone through certain physical therapy, occupational speech, whatever, done their kind of rehab, but they're still needing a little bit of support to where they can be back to whatever their former or preferred state of living, whether that be assisted or independent. Is that kind of your take?
Exactly. Yes, and
Yeah.
that will vary from guy to guy.
Yeah.
So we're looking for somebody that we're sort of emotionally, mentally, spiritually compatible with.
Yeah.
So
Very cool.
Friday we're getting inspected.
Yeah.
They're gonna come look at our house. So I woke up at 5:30 this morning, or no, I woke up at 6:30, and Mary was downstairs. She'd been working for like an hour
Hmm.
from 5:30 in the morning, upgrading our house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
getting things tidy.
Yeah. Gotcha. So, as far as accessibility, um,
Mm,
anything like that that has to be. floor?
I don't know. I'm sitting in the room that would be his, but it's on the second floor, so it depends on
Okay.
what their um, it depends on who the patient is.
Yeah, absolutely.
It might have to be that the patient would be down in down on the first floor. We have a flex room.
Oh yeah.
It's my current meditation room where I have my stereo. But the problem with that is that it's only accessible to half of a bathroom. To a
Oh, not a
bathroom
full.
with sink and toilet with no.
Gotcha. Not a shower, not or a
Yeah,
tub. Yeah, that makes
right.
sense.
So I might have to get one of these, you know, mechanistic things that moves them up the stairs.
Oh,
We'll
gotcha.
have to see.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
that's a
Okay.
lot. Yeah, but I mean, like you said, the right situation.
Right.
When it comes up and you guys are opening yourselves, your home and willing to kind of help and assist somebody in that time of need. I think that's fantastic. Yeah.
I
Yep.
don't know how transparent we should be about our lives on the air, but my cat just threw up. Ay, 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 ay. Gonna have to go an hour without getting cleaned up. Well, that's life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the context of my life today.
Yeah. Right. Nice. Very
And
nice.
you? What's up with you today?
Oh man, uh, kind of enjoying the day off. Actually, not a lot on my plate. I did a little wandering around, puttering around my yard, checking out garden growth and seeing what I need to do next. And yeah, we had a busy weekend. Had kids around here all weekend. We did our local city hosted their 19th annual Comic Con for the city.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So we did that.
Yeah, you went to it?
Yeah, yeah, we go every year.
Did you
Sometimes one day.
cosplay?
I did not this year. I haven't in a few years. There was one time where I did cosplay an anime character with my kids and family, and that was fun. They do pretty much every year. They do some sort of cosplay. Um,
Did your
and
daughters do it this year?
yeah, yeah, they did.
Who were
Yeah.
they?
Um, let's see. So on Saturday, my younger daughter was Eliza, one of the Schuyler sisters from the Hamilton Broadway show. She really wanted to do that. She also has a Joy from Inside Out, that cosplay that she was considering, but she went with Eliza. And my older daughter, she was this character from video gaming, Roblox video gaming, dressed to impress, I guess is what the kids are into. And it was a gal called Nurse Julie who kind of loses herself to some, you know, influences that in order to save a gal or a patient, she kind of gives herself up and loses her way in her mind and it kind of becomes a dark character. So Nurse Julie. And then on
Interesting.
day two, she was a character from also kind of a dark show or video game series, Five Nights at Freddy's. There's a young girl who's part of that story, Elizabeth Afton. So yeah, video game slash anime slash book character type. Yeah. So, but it was fun. So we took some friends with them both days. My older daughter had some friends that we took with us both days, or I took the second day. It was just me with the kids, the older kids on the second day. So yeah, it was fun though.
Outstanding.
Yep.
My kids didn't have Comic Con.
Yeah.
I remember it sort of emerging when they were in their teenage years.
Yeah. I don't remember much about Comic Con when I was growing up, and
Yeah,
even until my 20s. And then I think San Diego Comic Con became kind of the big
that's right.
world renowned. It is the Comic Con that everybody thinks of. But a lot of cities are doing their own now.
Yeah, it comes to Milwaukee.
Yeah.
I've
So
never gone.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so so we've got the weekly update. The what did that be? There's the aforementioned cat. You're right in
Oh,
front of me, honey.
yeah. Nice. Very good.
Love you. Love
Feeling
you
a
very
little.
much.
Hopefully, his stomach is feeling a little bit lighter, and
Yeah, yeah. So I transferred
oh yeah, look at that. Speaking of
the
gardening.
Snapdragons. Yeah. So there
Yeah,
you go.
fantastic.
Yeah, it was interesting. I'd never transferred anything before. I know it
Yeah,
sounds pathetic, but it's true. But
yeah,
I did, and it was easy.
yeah.
Although it wasn't easy, I also transferred a tomato plant that we've had growing,
Oh, okay. You
and
were
I
growing
broke
it
off
indoor
one of the stems.
on a tomato plant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
uh, I just
Depending
was.
on where it is, it might have needed to be broken off anyway, right? So
We'll say that.
yeah, just
So I
depends.
planted 3 tomato seeds in the soil along with what I had saved,
Yeah,
and that's out in the back too.
cool. Very cool.
Yeah, we've got peas coming along; they're bursting through. We have radishes; they're looking promising,
Yeah.
and zucchini are not doing well.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I got to see what's going on with my zucchini and squashes out there. Some of the leaves are a little yellowed, but
So, yeah.
I might be a little too much water. We'll see. It's hard when
Somebody,
it's all
go
on the
ahead.
system.
Somebody wants attention,
I see that.
honey.
Yeah.
You're such a sweetheart. You're such a sweetheart. He really loves to get attention.
Aw,
But I tell you, every night when I meditate, I probably told you this 10 times. He sits at my feet.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then that bell rings. The hour and 5 minutes is up. He gets up and walks away.
Yeah, that's a cat for you.
Yeah, exactly. So
I want your attention when you're not able to give it. And then when you're free and you're like, come here, I want to cuddle, I want to snuggle, they're like, no.
exactly,
Wait,
isn't that
wait,
classic? Yeah. Although I do give it to him when I meditate, I figure I'm the only person there. I
yeah.
don't have a Zen master looking at me, watching my if I'm behaving, so I pet him. You know.
Yep. Hey, integration.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. So he's going to sit right here
All right.
while I talk to you. All right. So topic of the day. Although call attention to what you told me beforehand.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. So,
Previous 2 episodes ago,
yeah.
episode 29.
I think, yeah. So we talked about last week that we couldn't see our replay on episode 29
Yeah.
on YouTube because we kind of triggered some Sony Music Entertainment copyright with the referencing to Johnny Cash. And so I did write to them and appeal to it as fair use, and it looks like episode 29 is available for viewing. So anybody want to check that out, then it's available now on our YouTube channel here. So
Right. And
that
Kathy and Pat were two viewers who
oh, okay.
contacted me and said, "Hey, I can't watch this episode."
Oh,
Now
okay.
you can.
Kathy and Pat. Well, thank you for tuning in and noticing that also, Kathy and Pat.
Yeah, I was
Um,
awful. I was pleased. I was like, "Oh, we've got viewers."
yeah, yeah, that's really cool. Well, it's available now. So I think only 6 people had seen it before the YouTube algorithm made it unavailable. And I think 7 people since then, since it became available, have seen it. So, you know, a dozen or more people have checked it out. So that's good.
Hallelujah. All right, so we've got an interesting topic today. I haven't even told you what it is. We
Right.
sometimes talk about that. We talked for 15 minutes before the show, and now we've been on the air for 15 minutes, 30 minutes of talking to you, and I haven't told you what we're talking about today.
That's all right. I like this. I like the mystery.
You like the mystery? Great. So this is a hubbub, a tempest in a teapot in the new age world
Okay.
going on for the last month.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring it up because um, it has wider implications. I wouldn't be talking about this if it didn't have wider implications for how we are uh, doing in a society.
Yeah.
Have you heard about Aubrey Marcus? Have you heard of Aubrey Marcus?
Not off the top of my head.
Right. I heard of him once back in February. Somebody said there's a new age thought leader and quote unquote influencer who supports Robert Kennedy Jr. So I looked him up and watched a poorly written poem which he recited hip hop style in praise of Robert Kennedy Jr.
Okay.
And I said, and wrote him off. Didn't glance down at his YouTube number, how many people were following him. Are you looking him up as we speak?
Yeah, I was looking them up. Yeah.
671,000 or 617,000 followers on his YouTube page.
Wow. Okay.
Um,
Jeez.
big. He's big.
Yeah.
Huge. Um, so a scandal broke out, but before I say what the scandal is, and you might be finding it as we're looking, um, I heard that there was a scandal. I
Mm-hmm.
watched a very, very bright woman, Sally Adams Jones, uh, and I watched her hour-long commentary on it before I watched what he had done. And I looked at his webpage,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say that as I was watching, I was thinking, ugh, he did not appeal.
Right.
There was an ick factor.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, he reminds me of Joe Rogan.
Okay. I was gonna say
You know
that.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Joe Rogan has an ick factor. I thought
Yeah.
he's a Joe Rogan-ish type of guy.
Right.
And then as I'm looking, I see that those two had collaborated.
Yeah.
They've been collaborating for a while, selling products. I don't know. I think it's nutritional stuff, but they're also at least I don't know if Joe Rogan's promoting ayahuasca, but uh, Aubrey Marcus does,
Oh,
and
okay.
he interviews the Green Bay Packers have a quarterback, Aaron Rodgers,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
who's kind of his reputation is in the mud.
Yeah.
He got real weird,
Mm-hmm.
anti-vax. Um, he kept saying he was spending his off season doing ayahuasca and doing darkness retreats and stuff. And my attitude in general towards all that is to each their own.
Right.
I don't judge people. Judging, when I say I don't judge people, I mean to say I don't reject them as having zero worth.
Mm-hmm.
I do judge them in a sense, and I judge everybody in terms of critiquing.
Yeah.
I don't mean everybody. I mean everybody that's in the public eye, critiquing whether they are worth following and spending time learning from.
Right.
And okay, so Aubrey Marcus, he's affiliated himself with Joe Rogan. He's written a poem praising Robert Kennedy Jr.,
Mm-hmm.
whom I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
I could use stronger language. And
Mm-hmm.
then he sits down for this scandalous conversation with Mark Gaffney.
Okay.
Now, Mark Gaffney is a guy who I have history with in the sense of being a friend of
Okay.
a friend of two friends. And another kind of new agey thought leader.
Mm-hmm.
And back 15 years ago, he wrote a book, and I was contacted by one of these friends who said, "Would you like to write a review of this book?" And I said yes, and um, it was pretty good.
Okay.
A 500-page book that could have been written in 280 pages. Just a lot of it repeating himself. He needed an editor desperately.
Yeah.
And my review was along the line of, "Yeah, this is a pretty good book." I don't remember what he said, but uh, it's pretty good. Wasn't what they wanted.
Right.
They wanted glowing, you know, they wanted me to have glowing. Oh my God, this book is spectacular.
Yeah.
Radically shifts my perspective. No, no, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Then shortly after I submitted it, comes news that he is in a sex scandal, and it's the second
Oh.
time that he's been in a sex scandal. He um, in 1980, when he was a young man, he was found to be having sex with a teenager in Israel, and he was like 25. He's 70 now, so 1980, 45 years ago. I think that's 25. Um, so then he resurfaces when I was getting to write the review and hear about him, and there's another scandal erupts that he had been grooming women in his group to be sexually involved, more than one, while married.
Wow.
Okay, he gets stripped of his. He's a rabbi, and he gets stripped of his rabbinical credentials. He has a PhD, but it's in Aramaic literature from the medieval era or from ancient era, not psychology, which is kind of how he presents himself.
Yeah.
Kind of presents himself as a new agey Dr. Phil slash Oprah.
Right. Right.
Okay. So a month ago, Aubrey Marcus
Mm-hmm.
sits down with two women and with Mark Gaffney. And I'm going, now this is a guy who's already affiliated himself with Joe Rogan. And now he's with Mark Gaffney. Nothing can go right here.
Right.
Cheesy.
Yeah.
And like I say, I try not to judge people, but I also do critique them. And I think to myself, oh, this can't go well at all.
Yeah.
Mark Gaffney. Joe Rogan, I have observed him speaking, 30% of the truth in his comments, and
Mm-hmm.
on that he gets people to follow, and then he turns it into radically irresponsible, um, uh, radically irresponsible summaries
Yeah.
of what he's thinking about.
Right.
And the same is true of Mark Gaffney. So they launch into this thing. That's my
Mm-hmm.
first time of watching Marcus Aubrey in a live setting,
Right.
and he's got these two women sitting beside him. One is, I think her name is Vilana,
Mm-hmm.
and it's his wife,
Okay.
10 years younger than him, and they're describing meeting each other. It's just so stereotypic that I'm embarrassed for them. Although I still am committed to each their own. But I'm just like, this is what passes for spiritual leadership in the world these days. He's like, well, we were both on ayahuasca when we were at the Burning Man uh, weekend or whatever that is,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I saw her through my third eye and realized we should be together. What's your reaction so far?
You know, I've looked into some of the spiritual work of ayahuasca, and I have to say there's an interest of my own
Hmm.
from that perspective. If there's a calling to it, and I can say that honestly, what everything I've engaged in, read, listened to regarding ayahuasca and the ceremonial experience of it, it's never really intended or meant to be a hookup experience.
Yeah,
Um,
right. I
um,
thought about,
it's more of a it's a spiritual searching connection to what they consider ayahuasca or the mother, Mother Earth, Mother, a being, whatever you want to call it. You are called to that. You're called to an experience that's for yourself. And when you think of it like, well, I was drawn to someone else who was in a uh, induced state of mind, to me, it undermines everything that the spiritual teachings of people who practice ceremonial use of ayahuasca.
yeah,
That's my red flag right there. Like,
yeah,
you were
right.
doing it at Burning Man as a party drug, and you had a connection. Like, you make this sound like you and your friend were rolling on ecstasy, and you had a e-bond.
Yes,
um, so yeah,
right.
I call BS already on that, but
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah,
that's how they met.
I'll just say that I also have been interested in ayahuasca and I would take it. But the fact that I'm now 67, approaching 68, I'm too old. I don't think that older people should put themselves into mind uh, altering states.
Yeah, yeah,
Yoga and meditation is enough for me.
yeah.
Okay, so but that's the one step. Okay,
Okay.
so he just happens to be guided by ayahuasca to a beautiful Hawaiian woman 10 years younger than him. Fine, to each their own.
Hmm.
You get the sense already as they're talking that a lot of things that evolved were his idea and that she was kind of going along with it. But the next step, he tells her, "Hey, I want to be polyamorous. I think that's what I'm being led to be. I'm going to go find somebody else, and you can find somebody else." And
Hmm.
soon thereafter, he comes home with a 28-year-old model, Alana. How old is he? How old did I say he was? 50?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Uh, he's 50. Ivana or Vilana is
Okay.
40, and Alana is 28. And uh, so they do a God ceremony, uh, which is some sort of uh, massage and chanting and
Okay.
music, and they decide to be a threesome, although
A thruple.
a throuple. Although the women can, it's not like Joseph Smith of the Mormons because the women can and do go out and get other lovers.
Yeah.
But this is where it gets really, I haven't even gotten to the weird part. So
Yeah.
they're having this conversation on this YouTube presentation, and Mark Gaffney is there as their like advisor. It's like it's like getting Rudy Giuliani as your advisor.
Right.
In my opinion, that's my level of respect.
Or RFK Jr. as your Health and Human Services Secretary,
Yeah, yeah. Kash Patel. We
as
could
your
go through
FBI
the list.
director. Yeah. Yeah.
We could go through the list.
Yeah.
But they go to Egypt together, the threesome,
Hmm.
And one of the things that I have observed is this, as I'm looking at his web page and his videos, uh, is that it's all, uh, they're not talking about going to Gaza to help the suffering Palestinians.
Mm-hmm.
They're not talking about helping the homeless. They're not talking about helping the hungry. They're going to luxury settings around the world, um, well dressed. He poses a lot on his webpage with his shirt off because
Mm-hmm.
he's buff, and it promotes his products that he's selling. But they go to Egypt. He goes into the temple of Isis, and Isis tells him, doesn't tell either of the two women, uh, you need to have a child with each one of these people.
Okay.
He comes out and tells the women, not immediately, but he tells Vilana first, and then he tells Alana. The two of them go to Alana and tell her, and frames it as this is our next stage in evolution.
Hmm.
This is radical monogamy, is how they what they call it, and we're gonna have I'm gonna have a child with both of you. Why don't you tell your wife that, Nick?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
So this commentator that I mentioned, Sally Adnams Jones, she had the greatest. I listened to about three different I listened to three different commentators, but her line was libidinal incontinence sacralized. Isn't that great? I loved it. Um,
Libidinal incontinence.
yes. So um, they're talking to the women, and Mark, it felt like they were ganging up on them.
Uh,
Mark and Aubrey were. Mark was saying this is clearly the next stage in human evolution. I'm Dr. Mark Gaffney, even though his doctorate is in medieval texts or ancient texts from
right.
the Middle East. I mean, good God, that doesn't qualify you for talking that way.
Yeah.
And Aubrey, and it was men telling these two people, this is what's going down.
Yeah.
And the women were saying, like, well, this is the next step in evolution, and I've got to open to it. I've got to align to it. I've got to, uh, I know that this is going to result in more love, deeper love, better love. And so I need to open to it as part of my evolution, as opposed to saying bullshit,
Right.
you know? So the good news is this came out and it's 617,000 subscribers,
Mm-hmm.
and they turned off the comments and said, we've turned off the comments because so many of you are horrified by what we've shared, and we're deeply hurt that you all are horrified by this next stage of evolutionary human development. um, Gaffney is such a snake. And I have a good friend who worked side by side with him for a while
Wow.
and left and said,
Yeah.
no, no. He said he's so
Well,
charismatic. He's good looking, went to Oxford University, very well spoken, charismatic, and he is he'll sweep you off your feet, like in a cult.
Yeah, I was going to say what all this sounds to me. It sounds very much like, I mean, a lot of different scandals of very fringe or trendy religions or cults where they kind of really they're targeting people who want and desire some meaning in their life and whatever that looks like, and uh, this individual quest for, say, like a wholehearted way of living, being your authentic self, and being centered, being mindful, putting your mental wellness at the center of your priorities. And underneath all of that are people who are still predators, even though they want to adopt some of these principles, these practices. And I see just a tertiary look here, with Aubrey on a Google search. I see things mentioned of, the polyamory, of course, but I also see, you know, talks of yoga. And I mean, imagine the misconceptions, people who are trying to find and discover meditation or yoga or, centering, mindfulness exercise work, whatever, and they come across this and this is what they believe it is. And it makes me think of the kind of the sick yogis who would start little followings, and build their little concubines, and taking advantage of women in the 60s and 70s in California, um, you know,
Yeah,
all the way up to, gosh, what's the name of Kool-Aid guy?
Jim Jones.
Jim Jones. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Um, I mean, that's how it all starts. You got these incredibly charismatic people who, deep down, they're using their charisma and feeding off of the vulnerabilities of people who are themselves trying to explore being vulnerable. It's the most predatory thing you can imagine. It's
Yeah,
sick. It really is.
and the women
Yeah.
not being empowered enough. I'm not blaming them, but I'm just saying it is sad that they weren't empowered enough to say no.
Well, it makes me, I mean, if you ask them, they're going to say, oh, I have free will, I have this, but it's like, there's a power dynamic here where
Yes,
you're dealing with a person who is, you've got age gap, and I'm not saying that all age gaps are wrong or anything like that either, but you have an age gap. You have a financial security dependence possibly here on this person. You have experiences where you're now part of their brand, their image, their, uh, you know, so their influence, and you are a case study or an example of them, that just adds credibility and clout to them. Like, you're a trophy that basically validates exactly everything they're doing. Um,
exactly. It very much reminds me. I journeyed in the evangelical world for a while in my life,
yeah.
from 16 until 24.
Mm-hmm.
I was with the born again crowd. That
Yeah.
was because um, it was a up, it was a step up from where I had been. Where I was before then was sort of a oh, just directionless, smoking weed, riding around. I was just kind of a slob.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, and so it was a step up. And then at 24, I said, oh my God, this is terrible. And I left it. But during that period of time, I saw a lot of health and wealth gospel, they called it.
Mm.
And there's even, I later read a book called The Disease of the Health and Wealth Gospel. Jesus
Mm.
is going to make you prosperous
Right.
and healthy. Preach from the pulpit. You know, Jesus is the guy that got crucified. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Not like his disciples, his 12 that were traveling around with him, all got wealthy and healthy after the resurrection. Nothing like that.
Right.
And it's so similar, so similar.
Yeah.
And my point for all this is um, that I go back to Ken Wilber. Now here's a guy, Ken Wilber, very smart, but Mark Gaffney glommed onto him for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
What he does is, like now he's with Aubrey Marcus, he gloms on to people who have a large following,
Mm-hmm.
large platform, as they say, and he gets into their machinations or
Right.
appears on stage with them, like Musk with Trump, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He did with Barbara Marx Hubbard, he did with Sally Kempton, he did with Ken Wilber, and now he's doing with Aubrey Marcus. These are people who have, hundreds of thousands of followers, maybe a million. And
Mm-hmm.
there he is smiling, Dr. Mark Gaffney. But what Ken Wilber said long ago, and it struck me as being so true, he talks about the um, pre trans fallacy. I think I mentioned this back when we were talking about wake up, you know, clean up, grow up, show up.
Right.
There is such a thing as the pre trans fallacy,
Okay.
with logic in the middle of pre and trans. So, and this is a disease that is in our country.
Mm.
It's what is driving, and it's easy to point my fingers at MAGA, but I think it's in all of the different ideological spectrum. Um, Pre-trans is there's a logical way to go through life and to look at um, uh, experience,
Mm-hmm.
look at we look at the best science, the best scientific data, draw the most logical conclusions from that. We go for the facts. Um, did I say that Aubrey Marcus said that the god ISIS told him they needed to have two children with both of those women?
Yeah. Children with each of the women. Yeah.
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 So that's pre. That's pre logic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
Yeah.
Uh, and we equate pre logic with trans logic because they're both not logical.
Mm.
But the difference is trans logic is rare, it's based on scientific rigor,
Mm-hmm.
philosophical rigor, uh, rigorous spiritual practice. And then you're open to mystery beyond that which we can know.
Mm.
Einstein is translogic. He
Right.
believed in he believed in he referred to God as the old one.
Right.
Um, I read a book called yeah, I should have looked it up before I came in here. Um, yeah, can't remember. Um, Quantum Questions. Quantum Questions. Edited by Ken Wilber, but uh, he took the 10 most foremost um, physics geniuses of the 20th century:
Mm-hmm.
Einstein, Schrodinger, Heisenberg, Eddington, Planck. I can think of five.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure if David Bohm was in there. He would be one of them. And asked them, "Do you believe in God?" based on your scientific research. Some said yes, nobody said no, but there were several who said you can't tell from the science.
Right.
It's a mystery beyond the science. That was basically the result of the book.
Yeah.
Now, if you ask Einstein and Aubrey Marcus about mystery,
Hmm.
we'll just call it mystery, and they say the same thing, do they mean the same thing?
Good point.
Right. Um, Pre-trans fallacy, we have, I'm sure the 617,000 viewers of Aubrey Marcus, a large percent of them think that ISIS spoke to Aubrey Marcus. Um, and why I say this is a disease in our society is that you can say, well, Johns Hopkins says that the coronavirus is real
Right.
and that um, I don't want to say what they say because I'm not really sure, but the vaccine, we need to social distance, we need to wear masks,
Right.
and there's different vaccines with different levels, but they're better than nothing.
Hmm.
Johns Hopkins, and there are an increasing number of people who say, well, that's a scam.
Right.
That's not true. I looked it up myself. I read an article on Breitbart.com.
You know, so yeah, that's the irony, right? So I'm tracking this idea. We have the pre logic is now framing the trans logic as though that is the conspiracy. Don't
Yeah.
believe that. What we're telling you is not illogical or conspiracy, even though that is backed by rigor of, you know, social, academic, scientific, theological evidence and study. Um, Anybody can come with a pre-logic conspiracy and try to basically then gaslight you into not believing what is considered sources of truth in society, and it's crazy. To your point, like that is a huge threat. Um, when people are beginning to believe the pre-logic, the unreasonable as truth, and that which has always been accepted as evidence based um, as conspiracy. It's like, yeah, Harvard, Johns Hopkins, UCLA, all those people, they're all part of, you know, uh, a big conspiracy where the liberal and, free thinking want you to, you know, be indoctrinated. So therefore, don't believe anything they ever do, even though it's all, um, you know, based on historical evidence, scientific method, study and rigor.
They just fired the director of the Library of Congress,
Yeah.
who has a PhD from the University of Chicago, which is right up there with Harvard and Stanford, etc.,
Yeah.
because she's black. They didn't say that, but they said something about the woke agenda.
Right.
So, um, and we've got the situation happening in LA right now, and I go online, and uh, what do I see? but people saying, and Fox is spreading this, the rioters are trying to destroy America. This one guy, I'm doing everything I can not to engage. I'm bending over backwards, but I had to do one comment yesterday, and I keep it to a short comment. This
Mm-hmm.
guy says, "Look at this. The rioters are destroying America. They're doing everything that they can." And there's about an 8 or 9 minute video which I watched. Not a single demonstrator was on the screen until the final 10 seconds when they showed a handful of people not rioting at all, but kind of standing there. It was
Mm-hmm.
video of the I don't know if it was LAPD or the soldiers, guys in military equipment.
Right.
Um, all this video, and then there's one little clip of people just standing there. And I said to him, "You have given us no evidence that there's a riot going on.
Yeah.
You haven't shown a riot." And then I just dropped it.
Yeah.
He hasn't responded.
Right.
But this is what we really have to uh, look within ourselves and say, "Am I falling?" I don't want to um, just scoff at everything that Aubrey Marcus says
Mm-hmm.
because of this, but we have to. Oh my goodness! Did he? The cat just leaned against the screen.
I still see you.
Okay, good. He pushed a drawdown button. Honey, you can't sit on there. Where was I?
Yeah.
Oh,
You don't want to scoff at everything Aubrey Marcus
right.
says.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna ever listen to him.
Yeah.
You know, for any sort of insight into anything.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope that those young women get out of there.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, that's
It's
crazy. It's,
we have cultural madness
yeah. Yeah.
descending upon us, and a big part of it is the pre-trans logic fallacy.
Right.
You know, you want to be logical and stick to the facts, stick to the science, stick to philosophical elegance, stick to the tried and true spiritual practices without the metaphysics. Just do the sort of the mental practices,
Mm-hmm.
and if that leads you to some sort of mystical experience, check it with other people and say, "This is what I've seen. Is this just you know?" And but always check and always be skeptical.
Right.
And this guy, he's pro- proposing a radical new cultural step in our evolution called radical monogamy. It's mind blowing. It opens you up to bigger and better love. And then you see the 40-year-old wife from Hawaii on screen crying
Mm-hmm.
because you know she said like twice in the hour, and it was 2 hours. She said, he's always pushing me to expand further. He's always pushing me to the next step of growing. And you could see her almost crying. And I
Yeah.
was like, pushing you to grow? Why doesn't he accept you as you are?
Right.
And why doesn't he honor that when you two got married, you did not talk about
Expanding your relationship to
yeah,
a polyamory. Yeah.
to a 28-year-old model?
Right.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking about
Well, and then to pass it off as though, oh, for everybody who thinks I'm I'm just looking for an excuse to, you know, I, I'm not going to leave my wife and trade her in for, have an affair or trade her in for a younger, newer model. Um,
But
I, but I'm gonna, you make yourself sound like you're somehow like I'm doing her a favor. We're doing this together. We're making this decision together, and all you're doing is talking for her and
yeah,
telling her how she feels and what she wants. You're telling her what she thinks, feels, and wants. Um, and then you're going to go and justify it by saying you heard from Isis at the temple of Isis that this is not wrong. And you're going to try to convince everybody who's doesn't really agree with what you're doing or your lifestyle choice, that no, this is really the way this is our evolution. I don't know if I'd
Mark,
call
I've
that
got
I don't know if I'd call that evolution because didn't I mean if you look at where we started in tribal life, and I mean there's other cultures too where this still is a thing, but
yeah, you're onto it. You're onto it.
tribal life was, you basically mated to grow your species, you know. So saying, we're evolving, that sounds like more like we're devolving to animalistic behaviors.
You are nailing it. You nailed it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the point I wanted to bring up, and I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So
a de-evolution, devolving. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, regressing.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So and he is hurt by the response. So I gotta admit, from a soap opera point of view,
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious what's going to happen next. This
Right.
this came out about uh, May 15th or so,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm curious. You know, Vylana is the one that really has my heart the most out of the three of
Yeah.
them. The 40-year-old wife.
Yeah.
Now she's in this scenario where they're vilified.
Right.
It's like, oh my god, how
Yeah.
did I get into this? Is it worth it? How about I find a simple man,
Yeah.
who's not so radically evolved and out of sorts? She kept saying, "Well, this really um, aligns with my spirit." She kept saying that. I was like, "You're not convincing me of that one bit." So I'm curious what's going to happen next.
Well,
They're going to come out
you know,
defiant, presumably.
the one thing I would say to somebody who said this aligns with my spirit, okay, but what is your heart, what does your gut feeling say?
Exactly.
Maybe you're at odds with your spirit if this is what aligns with your spirit. You know, what do you as a person feel, want? What's your gut tell you? What's your heart tell you? Like, put the spirit aside for now. Yeah. What does this feel right? Does this feel like you can? I mean, if you're sitting here forcing yourself to find ways to accept it and justify or rationalize it, then it sounds like it's maybe not the right thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Should never have to sell yourself on a lifestyle that you're living.
Well said. That should be on a T-shirt with your name
Sure. Should never have to sell yourself, yeah, for the
on a
lifestyle.
lifestyle that you not whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Good. And okay. And so this is what I'm thinking is happening. It's in the evangelical world too.
Hmm.
Pre-logic instead of logic or translogic.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think about it. I mean, I think a lot of it's happening I mean, I'll just talk about Christianity for a moment. One of my challenges with organized religion, specifically Christianity, and being exposed to it and having grown up in some Catholic environments as well, is this is the hypocrisy that really makes it hard for me to really grasp, even with a longing of having a spiritual connection or a spiritual belief system or a community of people based on faith. There is a feeling and a longing I've had, um, for whatever reason. But when I hear that they are using scripture or the word of Christ or God as a rationalization to to not accept, um, some of these alternative lifestyles and people who choose to love differently than them, um, you've lost me, because on the one hand you're preaching, love thy neighbor, um, you know Christ accepts all. Look at the people whom Christ advocated for and died for. These are all people who struggled with, lifestyles, or didn't have everything that the rich merchants had. Um, and so it's just a struggle for me to see that, somehow along the way we've lost that in these religious senses. And it's like I have family who are very involved with their, Christian faith, and to them it's a big deal that they are part of a church that does not open up to the LGBTQ community, because that doesn't align with their version of Christianity and faith, while some other Christianity and faith practices and churches will. Why is there a disparity? And then on the other hand, coming up Catholic, there's some hypocrisy, but the Pope will go out and say we accept LGBTQ. You know,
Right.
of all of them, you'd think they would be the most staunch, like restrictive, and
Yeah.
like, uh,
Well, it's kind of like what I was talking about when we were talking about growing up, that category, and we talked about the color codes of different levels of consciousness.
awareness and consciousness. Yeah,
Yeah, so there's blue, orange, and green are kind of where the food fight is.
yeah,
And blue is traditional, and this is reality to them.
right.
Traditional, follow the rules. The ultimate heroes in our lives are the soldiers and the cops.
Mm-hmm.
Um, be uh, follow the rules and the old-fashioned rules.
Yeah,
Orange is much more pragmatic. Their heroes are scientists and businessmen, you know,
yeah,
and so they're going to be fairly open to homosexuality is the thing that we're talking about, or
yeah,
other deviation from the traditional. And then green is human rights for all, equal human rights for all. So it's where you kind of it has nothing to do with the scriptures, really. It has to do with uh, what you bring
mm,
to your encounter with the scriptures. You
yeah.
know, I just I know we're at the end of time here, but I had this interesting 2 year experience
Mm-hmm.
where I was at a theological seminary, and I signed up to. They had speakers come in all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I signed up to be the one that picked them up at the Boston airport, Logan Airport, and drove them to the theological seminary, which was a 40-minute drive. So I was the chauffeur, basically.
Right.
And I had all these famous evangelical leaders in my car.
Mm-hmm.
Billy Graham. Have you heard of him?
Yeah.
Yeah. And all these other people. Um, and it's what's cured me of evangelicalism.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, there was some cool ones. I,
Yeah.
I remember two really cool ones. One was black and one was Hispanic. But all these white guys were just, oh, are you kidding
Yeah.
me? Are you kidding me? It was like I realized that they are to spirituality what Ronald Reagan and Edwin Meese and Don Regan were to politics.
Mm,
It's terrible.
yeah,
Terrible.
that's
So
hilarious.
we'll see.
Uh, well, yeah,
So
good.
when we meet again in 2 weeks, we may have California maybe have seceded from the Union.
Yeah. Well, I hope things do calm down on in California, but at the same time, I also I want to I definitely want to see and hear and experience a continuation, a momentum of this. Really a resistance. This movement, I think it needs to definitely it needs to be bigger than California because it's not. This is not a California pocket of you know tr- troublemakers. You know, there are people who align who want to see things differently all over the country. And so, yeah, I think that'll be the interesting next steps, the progression of this, and hopefully hearing of judges, you know, people in the National Guard, police forces, uh, choosing to do the right, better thing. Um, I think I saw somebody who posted and shared somebody who refused to carry out certain actions which they disagreed with during their military career. And actually, it didn't cost them their career. In fact, they were honored for
Oh,
leadership.
oh,
There was something I'd seen where I think it was I don't know if it was a Navy officer or Air Force, but yeah, there was something put out by somebody. I think they might be retired, but they talked about a couple instances where they did not carry out orders because it was not um, the human thing to do. There was, like firing on civilians. So uh, I think people need to know it's okay to say, hey, I can't do this. It, my conscience would say no to this and do the right thing. So yeah, we'll see as things play out. But yeah, well, thank you everybody who tuned in this
no
week.
comments from the peanut gallery today.
Yeah, I think we were a little slow on or low on the participation today, so that's okay. But we'll catch them on the replay. We'll look for comments on replays as well, and hopefully see any of y'all that couldn't make it live next week. And yeah, that's it for today. Anything else, John?
No, peace to one and all. My computer's about to die, so we better get off.
Peace to all.
I got
Thank
to clean up the toy,
you. The cat.
vomit.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.